January 27th, the time 7:22 p.m. Ms. Iker, will you please take roll call?
Mayor Christy Melendez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ken Bennett.
Here.
Miles Baker.
Here.
Barry Wilson.
Here.
Paul Rennemeyer.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
David Sosowski.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bennett, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item this evening is review of agenda by the board and addition of items of new business to the agenda for consideration.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented this evening.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could just
Yes.
make one addition, we actually have, the chief would like to present some life-saving awards. I apologize for not being on the agenda, but I would request that we add that following the presentation by the tree board.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I have a Paul Rennemeyer.
A move to
the
approve
motion,
with
and-
the exception of the addition of the award.
And who made the second? I did. Okay, and I have a second for Mr. Wilson. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. The agenda is approved as presented. Moving on then, this evening to presentations. First presentation this evening is Tree Board End of Year Review. And we have Allison O'Connor.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Allison O'Connor. I'm the current chair of the Tree Board, very proud to serve in that capacity. And we were asked by Mr. Baker to just make a year in review of what we've done in 2019 and what we expect to do in 2020. In each of your packets, you should have received just a little synopsis of some of the things, and I just wanted to call highlight to a few of those. The first is that we are doing presentations at the Clearview Library in partnership with the Weld and Larimer Extension offices, and so each month we have presentations. Last year, the Tree Board did do 2 of those presentations, and we have 2 scheduled for 2020. One in May on the ever-looming emerald ash borer. I will be presenting that with Ken Karamara, our town forester. And then in September, we'll be doing one on replacement trees for ash. So they tie hand in hand, and we're really pleased to do those. We've seen a really great turnout they're held during the noon hour on the second Wednesday of 20 to 30 people for each session, which we find to be very beneficial. Last February in 2019, we had our first annual Windsor Tree Symposium. We had a whopping turnout of 50 people, which we were absolutely thrilled with. We didn't know what to expect, of course, being the first annual. And we highlighted tree planting, tree selection with Dr. Jim Klett, and then Ken and Blake and the forestry crew gave an update on how to care for your trees and what they do, some of the town practices that they do with tree management. We always do our annual Sick Tree Day. That will happen in lieu of our regular board meeting in June. Last year we visited 51 properties in a blitzing 3 hours, followed by dinner to discuss what we found. And then we had some follow-up visits that a couple of our tree board members also did. So all told, about 60 to 65 tree board visits were done on behalf of the tree board, the town, and Sick Tree Day, which was really great. So coming up in 2020, we haven't had our meeting. That's tomorrow. And so I can't really tell you exactly what we'll be doing. That will be our discussion at tomorrow's meeting. But we do have the 2 talks scheduled at Clearview Library. I suspect we will have the second annual Windsor Tree Symposium sometime in February or March. So look for that. Sick Tree Day will happen on June 23. And then, of course, I think most of you are familiar with the Arbor Day activities that we do with the poster contest. The theme this year is Plant Small, Grow Tall. We will be doing presentations at the schools along with our annual tree sale. And just a quick update on emerald ash borer. My job is as the horticulturalist for Larimer County Extension, so this is a subject that I have worked with heavily since it was found here in Colorado in 2013. It was confirmed in Larimer County, southwest of Berthoud, about 3 miles in September of 2019. So it has breached the county line. We can deem now, according to federal guidelines, that the county, Larimer County, is infested. We have not found it to date in Windsor. I just spoke with Ken, our forester, and he does not have plans to treat trees at this time, which is on par with what some of the other communities are doing. The city of Fort Collins is also not treating at this time. Greeley has started some treatment just because of the way wood is moving. And so this insect can't fly well naturally, but it only takes one truckload of wood driving through town until we start to see it. So our foresters, the public, they're all very actively looking for this insect. It's also extremely hard to find, which is a devastating thing. So we will, of course, keep you updated as we make progress with that. And just know it's in Larimer County, but southwest of Berthoud, so not very close to where Windsor is. And finally, I do want to acknowledge the rest of the tree board members. We work very hard to keep Windsor tree-rific, as we like to say, and also our town forester and the staff. We couldn't do what we do without the support from the town, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I've had the privilege and pleasure, I think, for 10 years of working and hearing from you, and you've been part of the tree board, I think, that whole entire time.
I have, yes, thank you.
So, and you can hear from her excitement that obviously trees are a passion. And so thank you, and please thank all of your board for all of the work that you do to keep us green here in Windsor as well.
I will, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And next we have a special presentation this evening. Our Chief of Police is going to make some special presentations.
Madam Mayor and Town Board, thank you for overlooking my failure to add this item to the agenda. I was out of town and I completely messed up, but we have 4 officers here with us tonight representing actually 5 life-saving awards that occurred last year. Normally when you think of a life-saving award, when you consider an EMS, you think of firefighters and paramedics, when oftentimes, in fact, law enforcement officers are the first ones on scene to situations that are in flux, that are dangerous, and they oftentimes are the very first responder there. And tonight is no exception. We are joined by the officers and their family and co-workers and friends here tonight. I can't say enough about the men and women that represent our community. Their dedication and efforts to improve our life as a community are unspoken. They are truly professionals, and I'm proud of each and every one of them. They represent our department so well, and all the other men and women that work for us are just as gracious and courageous under tiring circumstances. So first I'd like to start with Sergeant Cook and Officer Dunworth. On May 7th, 2019, Rick and Josh responded to an address on Main Street in reference to a medical call. They ended up using an AED and performing CPR to save an individual's life that was in peril. It was because of their quick action and quick thinking that really sparked and preserved a life of an individual. So I can't say enough for these gentlemen. So the award says, a life-saving award presented to Sergeant Rick Cook in gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action and save the life of another on May 7th, 2019. This award also is the exact same thing for Officer Dunworth. Josh, life-saving award is presented to you, Officer Josh Dunworth, in gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action in saving the life of another on May 7th, 2019. Commander Lopez is also giving him a pin to be worn on a lapel. In some cases, they get more than one. They're very active. Rick, don't go too far. Officer Allen, Officer Rosa, would you join Sergeant Cook here, please? Today, we have 3 officers that again responded to a house and took action. There was a drug overdose. They responded, they provided medical assistance. Narcan was used. They revived the person who ironically wanted to stay home, I believe, after it was done. But you know, drug overdoses are way too common now. A day doesn't go by where you read in the paper or you hear on the news somebody's has had a tragedy in their family, oftentimes related to opioids and other narcotics. So on this date, these gentlemen and ladies took action and saved somebody's life. So Sergeant Rick Cook, Life-Saving Award, presented to you in gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action in saving the life of another on October 14th, 2019. Rick's going to need give an award for all the pens he has on him. Officer Rosin. Life-Saving Award presented to Officer Kerry Rosin in gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action and save the life of another on October 14th, 2019. Marshall. Life-Saving Award presented to Officer Marshall Allen in gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action in saving the life of another on October 14th, 2019. If you'd like, I'd have them all give a speech, but
Yes.
Well,
They wouldn't want it.
Well, first of all, I want to, and please don't leave, because after I've spoken, I'd like us all to go down, meaning the board, so that we might have the privilege to shake all of your hands this evening. But first and foremost, I want to say how fortunate we are to be in the community that we are, to have such great folks as yourselves to set the examples that you have done. And have what you have shown before us this evening. And then what I want to say to the public is, you know, these are the faces of Windsor. These are often the folks who arrive the first on the scene of an emergency or a crisis. These are the folks who each and every day put their lives on the line so that all the rest of us can walk and be proud of the community that we are able to live in, be proud of, year after year, we get the award for being one of the safest communities, not only in the state, but in the country. But it is because of dedicated individuals such as yourselves, and I think we ought to be very, very proud of the team that our chief has been building for us over the years. We have fine men and women. I'm proud to say we have women now on the team as well. But we want to just thank you this evening for all that you do, and know that you shine bright each and every day. And please, when you see a police officer, please know what they do and what they go through. And please be respectful of them, because they certainly do work very hard each and every day. And often a lot of what they do goes very unnoticed.
thank you.
So
Very,
thank
very
you.
kind words. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. With the bad, unhappy news that we hear every day, sometimes it's good that we are shared with the good. Okay, so moving on with our agenda this evening, our next item is Board Liaison Reports. Town Board Member Baker, Tree Board, and Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you very much. It's not easy to follow that, but I will update you on the tree board. No update on the tree board because the last meeting was canceled in December. Their next meeting is tomorrow, January 28th at 5 p.m. at the Recreation Center. And I have no update on the Historic Preservation Board.
Okay. Town Board Member Wilson, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Board, Poudre River Trail Corridor.
I don't have a significant update on Parks, Recreation, and Culture. I missed the last meeting due to my knee surgery. But the rec center is rocking and rolling, just like it always is. Thanks for that, Eric. On the Poudre River Trail Corridor, we hosted a meeting in Windsor last week that had Weld County, Larimer County, Greeley, Windsor, as well as Fort Collins to start looking at, since we are going to connect, start looking at the entire Poudre River corridor, not just the trail in Weld County, Greeley, and Windsor, and starting to put together that strategic plan because it is kind of the spine that links a lot of northern Colorado together. And so that was kind of the first step towards that. And thank you, Mayor Melendez, for attending that meeting as well.
Board Member Mayor Pro Tem Bennett, Water and Sewer Board.
No updates since the last meeting.
Board Member Rennemeyer, Chamber of Commerce.
I don't have anything significant. I just have a couple kind of repetitive things. Annual nominations for the Chamber's Business Community Awards program will open this week. Members can submit nominations for each category, and all nominees will be notified in February to attend the April 9th awards program. And as well, for any candidates running for town board or mayor, there is a candidate forum that will be on St. Patty's Day, March 17th from 5:30 to 7 at the Windsor Rec Center. Candidates from obviously districts 1, 3, 5 in the office of mayor. I'm going off of the update here. It's going to be presented by the Bank of Colorado, the Windsor Chamber, the League of Women Voters, and the Clearview Library District are all in conjunction putting on that event at the Community Rec Center on March 17th. Concludes my report from the Chamber.
Town Board Member Jones, Windsor Housing Authority and Great Western Trail Authority.
Windsor Housing Authority met last week. They're putting the final touches on their application for tax credit financing with the state, which is due. The application is due the 1st of February. So they're wrapping that up. That's an $18 million project for the first, I believe it's 58 units on the Golden Meadows project. Application goes in February, awards are given in June, and then construction, if they're approved, construction starting 2021. Great Western Trail Authority, the board has decided to try to reduce the scope of their project due to the property line dispute we're running into with adjacent property owner about a mile east of Severance. And we are going to try to narrow the scope down to 5 miles instead of the complete 7 miles for now, so we can get started to meet the requirements of the grant, which means construction, we have to get some construction started before the end of June. And then this will give us more time to work on these other areas that are in controversy. And that's all I have.
Okay. Town Board Member Kozlowski, Clearview Library Board and Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. The Clearview Library Board is meeting this week, Thursday at 5:30 at the library, if anyone would like to attend. And the Planning Commission met last Wednesday. The Future Legends Master Plan Amendment was presented there as we see it, and they referred it to us for consideration tonight.
Okay. I have nothing further to report from my last report on the North Front Range MPO. Downtown Development Authority did meet last week, so just a couple of reports on that. We're continuing to apply for the DOLA grant so that we can complete the undergrounding project on the back alley between 4th and 5th Street. So that application is going through the process, and we hope that we will be successful with that. The property from 5th to 6th Street, where the that old building was on, where we need to do some demolition. That's been a little bit of a holdup because we need to get Excel out there to take out the utilities. And so we've had some conversation with them, and we constructed a letter to our representative here, so hopefully we'll be able to get with them to get that figured out so we can get that property, that removed, so that we can get going on that, because they really want to make sure that that piece of property is striped for parking for the upcoming season when Boardwalk Park and all the events start taking place there later this spring. So that's one of the things that they're working on there. As we all know, we have a joint meeting with the DDA coming up in the next couple of weeks to look at the Brinkman Plan and what they're proposing there. And so really, I think we're off to a great start for the new year. They're looking forward to continuing to work with the town. Our next item is item 6, public invited to be heard. Did we have anybody who had signed up? Okay, under that agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to item B, the consent calendar, of which we have 3 items there this evening.
Madam Mayor, oh, sorry, I thought Mr. Sazowski was raising his hand about something. Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as presented this evening.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the consent calendar as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. It's approved and passes unanimously. Moving on to item C, our board action for this evening. First item this evening is resolution number 2020-04. A resolution approving 2020 outside agency funding requests.
Madam Mayor, the Parks and Rec Department, Tara Foch, has requested that this item be put, or rescheduled to the February 10th, regularly scheduled February board meeting.
Okay, so we would remove it from the agenda at this point in time, Mr. McCarter?
So if there's a second, but before we get to that, I just wanted to let you know that this is really my doing. I took a look at the resolution and realized that that was prepared while I was out last week. And so through no fault of anyone's, I looked at it today and thought, it's not really quite ready for prime time. If there's anything more, those of you who attended that last work session on this need to know, we can also cover that this evening. But the idea would be to bring this back February 10th, same resolution number, same title, but just a little bit more depth to the resolution to cover the topics. Certainly the idea that folks who want to tap into the outside agency funding fund would need to do that starting this year before October 1st for 2021. Reaffirming that those who were approved for 2020 are still good, but also making certain that we cover some of the other elements of outside agency funding that aren't quite clear enough in this resolution. So I'm behind this, but I think when it comes back, assuming you vote in favor of the postponement, it'll be a better product.
Well, and I think before we bring it formally, there were several requests from the board in our work session. I just want to make sure that all of that is fully presented, and maybe we discuss in a work session. I mean, in our general work session that we have, like if we're good to go before we finally bring it back on the agenda.
Sure, we can do that, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer. Is there a second to postpone? Okay, and a second for Mr. Bennett. Any further discussion or comments? Seeing none, all in favor vote yes, opposed no. And it passes unanimously, so we will be skipping that item this evening and moving on to item 2, resolution number 2020-05. Resolution approving a master plan amendment, Future Legends, Jeff Kratowski, Future Legends LLC, the owner applicant, Rob Van Ufflin, Galloway and Company, the applicant's representative. Quasi judicial, and Mr. Hornbeck will be giving us a presentation.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. This amended master plan resolution before you tonight is for the project known as the Future Legends. It has been reviewed in accordance with Article 2, Chapter 15 of the Municipal Code regarding master plans. The site is approximately 132 acres, a portion of which formerly known as Diamond Valley Park, and is zoned limited industrial, or IL. The master plan depicts a number of different uses, including a stadium with approximately 3,400 seats. 2 inflatable domes are shown. I believe the latest proposal, however, is to amend that to a single larger dome. 8 baseball fields, 1 baseball miracle field, 8 soccer or multi-use fields, sand volleyball, a dormitory of approximately 30,000 square feet, 2 hotels with approximately 270 rooms combined, an extended stay facility with approximately 50 rooms, a medical office building of around 40,000 square feet, general retail uses of approximately 80,000 square feet, an e-gaming theater facility of 280 seats, and lastly, the parking is around 1,200 stalls for the whole facility. There are some other notable items on the site. There's a town drainage master channel conveying stormwater north-south through the site, and it's I don't know if you can see the cursor, but it's on the eastern third of the site. There's also a town trail which would follow that general alignment of that drainage channel, and there are also major Greeley water lines which traverse the site. There are 2 primary access points shown on the master plan: an intersection on Eastman Park Drive on the south end of the site, as well as access from Diamond Valley Drive. There are additional access points for parking off of Diamond Valley Drive. And lastly, there's an emergency egress exit up onto Garden Drive, which could also be used for when there's large events for one-way exiting by the general public. There is a traffic study being prepared for the site, and subsequent site plans will need to adhere to those findings. The master plan does show a number of phases. Sorry. The first phase is showing the 2 soccer fields, multi-use fields, which have already been approved by administrative site plan, and those are under construction or perhaps complete by this time. Phase 2 is the stadium, the hotels, and inflatable dome. Phase 3 is the remainder of the sports fields, and Phase 4 is the retail uses, medical office, e-gaming, and extended stay facility. These are, the next slides are just more detailed views of quadrants of the site. If there's any questions on specific portions of it, I can go back to those. The project is in conformance with the strategic plan as well as the comprehensive plan. There are a number of recommendations, and I apologize in advance for the kind of wordiness of these. Due to the complexity of this project is the reason for a lot of these, and the applicant has agreed to these conditions. So at their January 15th, 2020 meeting, the Planning Commission did forward a recommendation of approval of the master plan amendment subject to the following conditions. Number 1, master plan approval shall not be deemed to release any portion of the property from the requirements and limitations of the first amended and restated agreement for the cooperative development and use of Diamond Valley property dated January 28th, 2019. Release of any such requirements and restrictions shall be effective only upon official action of the Windsor Town Board taken at a regular or special meeting in accordance with the town's home rule charter. Number 2, due to the absence of a transportation impact study, the type and extent of access improvements to the property from Eastman Park Drive shall be determined based upon the town's transportation consultant review of the applicant's forthcoming TIS. All other traffic study findings as determined by the town's transportation consultant review shall be incorporated into the master plan as recommended. The next condition, permanent structure shall be set back from plugged and abandoned oil and gas wells in accordance with any such setback requirement in place at the time of site plan submittal. Next condition is a condition of the first subdivision approval for the property, the portion of Area E providing east-west access to the site as depicted on the master plan shall be dedicated as a privately maintained permanent public access easement to remain open for street and parking purposes associated with the Town of Windsor Parks and Recreation related uses. Number 6, a 20-foot wide easement for a future town-owned 12-inch water line along the eastern property boundary of Area D shall be dedicated to the town as a condition of the first subdivision approval for the property. The water line, if installed, shall be installed at the expense of the town or parties benefited by the water line. And I skipped over 1, being all outstanding staff and planning commission comments shall be addressed. So lastly, staff requests the following be entered into the record: application, supplemental materials, staff memo, supporting documents, any testimony received during public hearing, and the recommendation. There is an applicant representative here as well. Should there be any questions for him? And that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Did the applicant representative wish to add anything at this point? No. Okay. Are there any questions?
I had a very
Mr.
minor
Wilson?
question, and I don't think it was in the packet, but I wasn't familiar with the Miracle Field. I looked it up. Looks like it gives individuals, kids or adults who have maybe physical or mental disabilities normally couldn't play the chance to. Is that what that is?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all ADA, it's special dimensions, so that's exactly the purpose.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, Mr. Baker?
Can you expand on the traffic impact study? How is that gonna, are they gonna just amend this based on whatever our consultant says?
Well, I believe that the big question really is the access to Diamond Valley Drive, whether that's a traffic signal, a roundabout, or what's the appropriate treatment there. So we are also reviewing site plans for these different phases, and we'll be reviewing additional site plans. So we'll need that traffic study to be completed to really implement those site plans.
Okay. So they're gonna accept whatever the findings are?
Well, their consultant will submit the study. We will have our outside third party review it and kind of go from there.
Okay, come to an agreement.
Right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Okay, Dr. Jones?
This is all zoned industrial, correct? Light industrial?
Correct, yes.
Is there any reason we should be rezoning as we go, like for the commercial area for?
Well, the industrial zone allows for the commercial uses, so there's no necessity to rezone it. They're allowed under the industrial zoning.
Well, and also, Dr. Jones, I think that when the board amended the agreement a while back, we listed specific uses in there, so I think the board was really specific on the acreage that was going to the park, what different uses were there, so it wasn't exactly a PUD, but I think the board was really clear on what development could occur there.
Okay, just a couple more here. Do we know if there are any abandoned wells in the immediate area?
Yeah, so there is one abandoned well. It's in really the southern portion of the site. The reason for that condition, just as background, is, as I believe you're probably aware, the town does not have a requirement for setback from plugged-in abandoned wells. But knowing that that's a potential item you'll be looking into, we would just want this site to conform to any regulations which would be adopted.
Okay, parking for the stadium, is that, have you got any detail there, or does that come at a later time? Will it be adequate, 3,500 seat stadium?
Yeah, so the master plan does depict those approximately 1,200 stalls. The the site plan will also need to look at that in more detail. And I believe typically most communities that, well, let me back up. Windsor does not have a code requirement for parking for a stadium. It's not enumerated in the code. Most communities that I've seen have a requirement of either 3 or 4, one parking space for 3 or 4 seats. So from that regard, it does seem adequate.
In addition, Dr. Jones, I believe that to the extent that they would be relocating a professional team here, that there'd be requirements put on them, by Major League Baseball or whoever that was. So I think that's also kind of governing their parking requirements. It's not even really town-driven. It's more on what MLB says is adequate to address their needs.
Okay. And the last one is there a timeline for the future phases to be developed, or?
I believe the applicant could probably better answer that, what their intent is on the schedule.
Would you like to come forward and answer that?
My name's Larry Thomas. I'm with Hensel Phelps Construction. We're one of the investors and the builder. Your question regarding parking in the MLB, they specifically set up guidelines based on the seat count that we had to meet at least 1,100 stalls. Currently, we have 1,392 shown on the plans. With regard to the build, our goal is to get it in the ground in April, bearing financing. So we're pushing that very hard right now. Construction will come in effectively 3 phases. We have phase 1A, which will be the stadium, the hotels, and the field plus dormitory. Phase 1B would be the retails portion, initially 20 to 30,000 square feet. And then phase 2 would bring in the last of the retail, which will bring us up to somewhere between 60 and 80,000 square feet. Timetable, we are hoping we can get a stadium in the ground and constructed by May of 2021 so that the team can be relocated here. So that's where we're at.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of changes with the MLB right now, so we're all trying to figure out what's happening with the Pioneer League and the minor league section right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sosowski?
Yeah, just a question for Paul, only on, I'm sorry, only the condition, just referenced Area E, I think, as marked on the master plan, and I can't find Area E.
Sure. So Area E is this east-west connection, is what it was referring to, which provides access to, the town needs that access for programming of sports fields.
So that's delineated on some other drawing?
Yeah, probably at this scale you can't read it, but yes, it is depicted.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, I
Mr.
have a
Baker?
follow-up on the parking. We talked about the stadium, but what if there's another event or something else happening? Is there parking beyond what MLB requires?
So there is also they are anticipating the potential for overflow parking on the southeast corner. So if there were a large event, on a rare occasion, maybe they would need to park on a gravel type surface or grass.
And will the future phases of commercial and hotels need parking beyond what is depicted here, or is this everything?
I believe this is depicted to be all of the parking for the site.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Bennett?
So I want to make certain that the developer and staff has worked out the drainage in that Greeley line, because I think it had an impact on design. So I think everybody, just double checking, I was aware of what could happen if you had to dig that up. Wasn't there a retention pond, we talked about putting some netting or fencing around? Where is that on the?
So, yeah, so there's a pond.
Is that phase 3? Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
And to answer your question, I can tell you that Larry, I'm surprised he has any hair left. I think he's earned his pay in the last few months designing around. So
Yeah.
I can tell you this master plan depiction is probably version 2050 of them twisting this up and making everything work with the site. So for example, and these are going to be future conversations with the board, but The multi-purpose fields, right now the discussion is for those to be grass versus the
That's what the
synthetic,
line goes through.
because the Greeley line is under that, and it's a lot easier to replace grass than it is a synthetic field. So I might have been overly aggressive with that number, but it feels like a couple thousand iterations they've gone through. So the site depicts all of the utility easements and everything that goes through the site, and this is how it works.
Any additional questions? Okay. Then is there a motion to approve?
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2020-05.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Bennett with a second from Mr. Wilson, approving resolution 2020-05. All in favor signify with yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 3, resolution number 2020-06. Resolution approving modifications to the road impact fee schedule pursuant to section 1715-100, subsection B of the Windsor Municipal Code. Legislative action, Mr. Balsett will give us presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Town Board. Yes, section 1715-100B of the code requires the town to perform an annual review of the road impact fee table each year to make adjustments for inflation based on the most recent 2-year annual data calculations from CDOT's Colorado Construction Cost Index. The 2019 annual adjustment results in an increase of 3.18%. This is the 2019 adjustment, as staff is in arrears, and we should have had this on an agenda the end of last year, but this is the earliest we could get it on. The proposed resolution is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 6, Transportation and Mobility Goals and Objectives. And it's also consistent with the strategic plan, which includes thoughtful framework and supportive infrastructure, traffic, and roadways. The enclosed resolution is written such that it would not be effective until March 1st, so that we could actively advertise and notify people over the coming month that this is taking effect. With that, I'd answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Balsett?
Nothing.
No? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 2020-06.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Doc Jones, approving resolution 2020-06. All in favor vote yes, opposed no.
Mayor, excuse me, I'm sorry, at least in my package it's 03.
Yeah.
Mine says 03.
There's a typo.
It was a typo, the packet was updated.
Should be 06.
It should be
06.
06.
Yes.
No, we just put 05.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
That was correctly stated by me, who made the motion.
Okay.
There's some other motion.
Are we calling for a vote? Did we?
Yes.
We did.
Yes. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Guess we have to do it again. It's the time lapse. And the resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4, resolution number 2020-07. A resolution setting public hearing dates for the Overland annexation. Mr. Hornbeck.
Thank you. The resolution before you is to make certain findings of fact concerning the annexation, determining substantial compliance with the Colorado Municipal Annexation Act. This act requires that after a conforming annexation petition has been submitted, Town Board shall set a hearing date to determine if the allegations made in the petition are supportable and if the property is eligible for annexation. In other words, setting public hearing dates to actually consider the merits of the application. Those dates would be March 4th and March 9th of this year. The subject property is, can you bring up the screen? The subject property is off of State Highway 257 It's approximately 173 acres in size and is proposed to be zoned residential mixed use with the annexation. There is a planned unit development or PUD zoning overlay, which is also being reviewed and will be before you in the future as well. And that concludes what I have for you on this one.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Hornbeck on this item? Okay. Yes,
Just one
Doctor.
more. So do we still have, can we go to the next one, Paul? So do we still have two enclaves out there, basically, just south of that property, or is that already annexed?
Yes, there will be, so you can kind of see the dash line here is Town of Windsor limits. So this area between that dark line and the blue figure would all be enclave.
Enclave, and also to the west, a little bit, that triangle?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Mr.
I'm curious,
Suskowski?
because I'm assuming that land use plan, the color coding relates to the zoning,
Yeah, so that's a single family, the color shown.
the yellow.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? If none, is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 2020-07.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Baker, approving Resolution 2020-07. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 5, resolution number 2020-08, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement for co-regulation of overlapping MS4 permit areas between the Town of Windsor and City of Loveland. Legislative action, and Ms. Hagman will give us presentation.
Hi. Good evening. This is an intergovernmental agreement between Windsor and Loveland. Loveland has approved a development agreement to be undertaken at or near Fairgrounds Avenue from Traverse Stakes to Crooked Stick. And although the bulk of this development site is within Loveland, the construction activity is necessarily going to take place across both Loveland's and Windsor's MS4 boundaries. And both of our MS4 permit regulations contemplate sharing the MS4 oversight when these overlapping situations occur. And per this IGA, Loveland would assume all MS4 responsibilities for the site and will forward any of their inspection reports to Windsor. That's about it. I'm just asking that you recommend, that you approve.
Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2020-08 as presented.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Wilson with a second from Mr. Rennemeyer, approving resolution 2020-08. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 6, resolution number 2020-09, a resolution approving the form of a draft NISP Phase 1 asset acquisition agreement and authorizing the mayor to execute same upon presentation. Legislative action, and Mr. McCarter will give us presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What's before you is the product of close to a year's worth of meetings and negotiations over what is the first phase of asset acquisition for the Northern Integrated Supply Project. Windsor is a participant in NISP. We are an 8% participant relative to all the others. The transaction that we're talking about here, I would like to characterize as the engagement, and then later on we'll have a wedding. The engagement here is to acquire some assets that are needed now to make certain that if the record of decision is favorable and if the outcome of what we expect will be some litigation after the record of decision is favorable, then these assets will position the project to move forward. And it includes the things like the acquisition of farms, water rights, ditch rights, right-of-way, and related physical assets. The agreement has the NISP Enterprise, which is a sub-organization, if you will, of Northern Water. The NISP Enterprise will go acquire these assets with the accumulated sources, with the revenue from the accumulated agreements. Windsor's share of this is $1.65 million. We have budgeted that for 2020. Then that is in addition to the amount of money Windsor committed to its ongoing support for the design and permitting of NISP. So what we have is a second contribution to the acquisition of initial assets for NISP. The agreement has the enterprise acquiring the assets, holding them until we get to a favorable outcome with the record of decision, and then those assets will be integrated into the project. The agreement also builds in the possibility that the project will not go forward. Either the record of decision is unfavorable, or for whatever reason, the NISP enterprise decides not to go forward. In that event, there is a winding down section to this agreement that allows the Northern to first have a right of first refusal on certain assets and to pay the cost basis for those, to return to the contributors those shares. And then the closing agent or the wind-up agent will also figure out a way to reduce those assets to cash or cash-like assets for distribution back to those of us who contributed in proportion to what we contributed. That is in the event that the NISP enterprise decides not to go forward. The agreement also allows for different players to join into the NISP project. Certain portions of that will happen after the record of decision. There are also portions that allow existing NISP participants to increase their shares while others decrease their shares. But all of that we expect will be held until we get the record of decision and have that favorably disposed of. This agreement does not guarantee the participants ownership of the assets that are being acquired. The NISP enterprise will own the assets for contribution to the NISP project. This agreement, as I mentioned, it was probably a year's worth of meetings that I've been attending. There are parallel meetings that were taking place with the finance folks and the project folks. So the lawyers were meeting on this agreement, but the project and finance folks were also meeting to come together to come up with what is needed for this agreement. I will tell you that when I was sitting there with 12 or 13 lawyers, I figured the cumulative hourly rate at these meetings was around $10,000, because we had some of the best water lawyers and some of the best municipal lawyers in the state attending those meetings. I will say, in response to some questions that have been asked about this agreement, that it is somewhat one-sided. The engagement, if you will, it assumes that Northern will go forward with this project, but gives Northern the ability to pull the plug if it chooses. Assuming that we go forward with the project, the NISP enterprise, through the Northern Board, will expect us to enter into a much more detailed allotment agreement, which will firm up what Windsor's share of NISP will be. So what we have been assured is that the NISP enterprise will consult with us when it comes to decisions about this, but the NISP enterprise can't give up its essential powers under the statute or under Tabor, so that those decisions are necessarily made by NISP and the Northern Board. So I am recommending you approve it. All of the other participants are seeing a similar, identical agreement. It's just the names and the dollars and the percentages are different. If you approve this, but someone else doesn't, then we go back to the drawing board. Likewise, if everyone else approves it and you don't, we go back to the drawing board. That's your choice here tonight, but I am recommending that you approve it.
So this was drafted by Northern Water?
With a lot of input from the participants' legal teams.
Okay.
I added terms, Erie added terms, Left Hand Canyon or Left Hand Water District, all kinds of other players have had a hand in the language that you see here tonight.
Okay. Questions for Mr. McCarter? Mr. Soslowski?
Not so much a question, Mayor, but if I can sort of comment. Mr. McCargan and I have had a number of conversations and exchanges on this agreement, and I can fully appreciate the situation we're in with the Enterprise Board and the nature of the terms of this agreement. But I do want to raise for the board to consider as we go forward. Under this agreement, for instance, $20 million is being contributed into the enterprise by the various participants. But the participants do not have representation on the Enterprise Board. The participants, quite frankly, have no involvement at all with the design or construction oversight or management. I don't know of many things that I would, in a commercial sense, allow for my money to be used for something over which I had no control whatsoever. The enterprise, for instance, has the authority unilaterally to terminate the project at its own discretion. Despite the fact that 16 participants may be jumping up and down and saying, no, 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 they can simply do it. In any event, I appreciate this interim agreement to get us through this first hurdle, but I would certainly caution us if we do not have say on the Enterprise Board, if we don't have say in the overall project, query whether we should have an owner's rep that isn't somehow involved in overseeing. As structured, the NISP organization has total control over the project as well as the funds, but it's everybody else's money. So I will vote in favor of this today, but I think as a board we really have to be careful as we go forward with larger dollars.
Anything else from Mr. Carberry? Okay. If not, is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 2020-09.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mayor Pro Tem Bennett, approving resolution number 2020-09. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 7 then is our January 2020 Community Development Report from Mr. Ballstad, Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor, Town Board. So this is the first building and development activity report of the new year. So we've got some year-end numbers and just some highlights of the report that is also in your packet. So obviously you saw the Future Legends project tonight. We're also still reviewing the 8th, 9th, and other filings of Raindance as they continue to move forward and north of New Liberty Road now. The Overland annexation was also on tonight's agenda, setting those public hearing dates. The Windsor Housing Authority project is still moving forward, and they're working with their architect. Greenspire Master Plan, Village East 8th filing, and South Hill 8th filing are all projects that staff is reviewing at the current time, in addition to others. Projects that are actually coming out of the ground include the retail center over off Highway 257 in Windsor Commons, the Highlands Industrial Park first filing Lot 5 Block 2 project is the one that's the right-hand photo in this slide. And Canvas Credit Union is wrapping up. And again, Raindance, multiple filings under construction. The Rigid Harmony Road second filing is building, and third filing will be starting this year. And Chimney Park, fourth filing, the townhomes along Chestnut Street are coming out of the ground. Lots of infrastructure coming out of the ground as well. This is just a photo of the community center and pool at the Raindance subdivision. This is from around just before Thanksgiving time, so it's changed quite a bit since that snow at Thanksgiving. And then also Water Valley 27th filing is the work that's being done on the east side of 7th Street across from Pooter Heights subdivision. And then, as I mentioned, the Rigid Harmony Road is still working on their infrastructure in the third and final filing. So for 2019, we did break another record, previous high of 690 single-family detached homes in 2016 has fallen to the 781 that were issued last year. And in December of last year, Rain Dance, Rigid Harmony Road, and Windshire Park were the 3 leading subdivisions in permits. And I guess I should add, we also have issued over 50 new single-family homes already in 2020, so it's still strong. So again, this just shows the last 10 years, or the decade. Obviously, the last 4 years have been the record-breaking years. Prior to this period, 451 permits in 2000 and 2005 were the town's previous highs. Single-family lot inventory, we've been tracking this just since the permit numbers have been so strong to see how many vacant lots we keep in inventory, and we're still over 1,000 vacant lots. So the approval of new filings has kept up with the demand of building permits. Multifamily residential building activity really has ramped up over the last few years. It was a little bit off this past year, but still was over 100 new units. These are just a few of the a few of the multifamily projects that are underway. So like I said, the multifamily units were a little bit off of the last 2 years, but there are units that are approved and ready to be constructed that will probably make that number at least stay consistent with the 121 this year as well. And because of that dip in the multifamily units, even though we broke the record with detached units, our overall housing units or dwelling units dipped a little bit, but still over 900 new dwelling units is a lot of new Windsor residents. So with that, that's where we're at.
Are there any questions for Scott? Mr. Sosowski?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At that last slide, when you say dwelling units, are those buildings that are built or just
Permitted.
Permitted?
Yeah. So, yeah, multifamily and residential, or multifamily and single family combined, we permitted that number of units.
So I looked at, obviously it starts picking up in 2016, so over the last 4 years, if you total it and you multiply it times 2.6, right, it's 9,100 people.
Right.
Yeah.
That last 4 years.
I'm glad you took note that those years 2016 to 2019 were the best years, exceptionally.
Who was in charge of this?
Really?
Yeah, I'm glad you made note of that, David.
Bill,
But you may know that too.
I was thinking like this.
That's funny.
Any other questions for Scott?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on then to communications. Communications from our town attorney.
I have nothing, Madam Mayor.
Okay. From town staff, anything further, Mr. Thornhill? Mr. Lucas? Chief?
Nothing.
Okay. Communications from our town manager.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So I just want to point out that we have kind of the monthly report for the strategic plan in the packet. So read through it. If you have any questions, please let me know. So this is through basically December. And so we'll do the next report at your next meeting in February and actually have that January report. We just kind of missed it last meeting, kind of start of the year, and we didn't get it in there. So it'll normally be on the first meeting for the previous month. I also want to point out this Thursday we have a council orientation. So any of our prospective town board folks will be here from 5:30. Is that right, Crystal? 5:30 to 6:30 in the third floor meeting room. So we'll try to make sure everybody understands kind of their legal requirements with campaigning, keep everybody out of trouble. So that's it.
Okay. Can you remind me what our new app is for, that's replacing the YouGov? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's SeeClickFix.
Oh, okay.
And so, and really what happened is your Gov is no longer supported. That app is going away.
Right.
And so our hand was kind of forced into using a new application. SeeClickFix has been purchased by the group that does our website. Who's that? That's
Civic Plus.
Thank you, Civics Plus. So that's their app, although it's been around for quite a while. I think it's going to integrate a lot better with our software, and people can don't have to choose portals as much. I think they can just report their problem, and staff will be a lot better to respond to that. So I think it is an upgrade, but it's really not an upgrade that we wanted to do necessarily. It's kind of one that we were forced to do.
Well, that kind of question came up at Dish and Dessert.
Right.
and we could not remember the name of it. So Click Fix. Is it operational and has it gone live yet, or?
I think so. I think our website went live.
I mean, the Click Fix. People can start, is that in the works if they've got
I think it's in the works. I don't actually, I can't say that that's live or not. I can email the board
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I was thinking that's not, it's coming, but it's not.
Right, I think that you're right,
Quite
because
ready.
we're still working on internally to make sure that for the user end, one thing that I don't like about YourGov, it still requires a lot of human interaction to make that work. So if somebody reports a problem and it goes to the board and it goes to me, and then I forward it on to the appropriate department head if it's not me who should respond, and then kind of tracking them back to respond to me, to respond to the people, there's just a lot of chances for that to maybe not go right. And so we're going to try to automate that a lot better so we can kind of create these tickets, we can create ticklers. For example, if I see a report at 11 o'clock at night, I'm looking at my phone, I'm going to forward it right then. Well, in the morning, I will have totally forgotten possibly that I forwarded that on. So this will help us. I think we'll be able to streamline better and just make sure that as people raise concerns about town operations, we have some good accountability to get them back to them.
Okay. Any communications from town board members? Okay, Mr. Soslowski?
I have a question for Chief, only because you had your report at the end of our packet. And I'm looking at the end of the year, which I'm assuming, of course, is in full year report. Year to date is 2019. Traffic accidents, traffic stops, 6,300 last in 2018, 9,900. That's the 9,000 people that you built for. They're all racing around the town.
I attribute that to Commander Lopez's traffic team. So.
And the problem is?
Are you one of those recipients?
Keep it busy. But I'm assuming it's really just population increase that's driving that. It's a significant jump in.
It's not just Windsor's, it's also the general area, the region. I mean, not only Windsor's growing, but Fort Collins, Loveland, Greeley, Severance, Timnath, the entire region is growing dramatically. So there is, and we have put a much more concerted effort at trying to impact some of the traffic concerns. So there's some of that related to it. Primarily it's just the number of people.
Yeah. Wow. Quite a jump. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Renemeyer with a second from Mr. Baker. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. We are adjourned. Thank you.